What's up, Viking fans? Welcome to the Purple People Podcast. It is a special day today. No pun intended.
Wah, wah.
I'm going to go around the room here. We've got Adam Carlson with us. How are you, sir?
I am trying out my new arm for my mic here, so that's new to the show for me. Kind of fun.
I know you said fancy in the chat. I was like, moving on up in the world. I like it. New mic sounds great, man.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Kyle West, what's up, dude? How are you?
Heyo, I am doing good. I just finished up supper, so I am ready to chit-chat Minnesota Vikings football.
Perfect. Well, if you guys notice 4 squares instead of 3, my buddy Justin is here from Purple and Gold for Days. What is up, sir? Welcome
I'm
in.
good. Oh, thanks for having me. How you guys doing this evening? You have to. I know you in North Carolina, but where are you two guys from? Just out of curiosity.
Originally Minnesota, but I'm in Michigan now.
And I'm in Iowa, central Iowa.
Well, almost all of the snow has melted there in my neck of the woods. Just in time, hopefully it won't snow again. But hey, who the heck
It's definitely not that case in my neck of the woods here.
Yeah.
I got lots of it.
No, but I'm good. It's one of those. That's what the fun thing about Upper Midwest. You're starting to think when you go to sleep at night or come home and it's 65 degrees. Oh, I won't need my coat the next morning. Yeah, you do, because we're back down to 15. So then you come home again. It's just like, oh, I have to have this.
But there's always that friend of yours. No matter what the temperature is outside, they're wearing shorts and tank top. And
yes.
You just look at them like, what?
Yeah, and I feel like that's probably you, Adam.
No, it's actually not me. I do have that friend though.
Or a 13-year-old kid that says, Dad, I don't need my coat. And then all of a sudden I can't figure out why I have a cough. But, there's that. So.
Right. So I got to say right off the bat, I'm a huge Randy Moss fan. So the background that you got going on there is absolutely perfect. I love the solid black jersey. That's fantastic.
I wish that there had been one game within
right.
Randy was here that they would have used those jerseys because it was Color Rush before there was Color Rush that, they would make alternate jerseys just to sell them and make money off of them, but they never actually played in those daggone things. But what I usually do with the background is, I've got this one in the middle, and yes, that was custom made for me. My favorite show is 24, and that's what my Twitter handle is. So that's why went with 24. But, I usually rotate the jerseys throughout the season, and for the off season, I'm just going to let the Super Freak hang up there for a while. So
that's not a bad idea. I could probably hang some up when I get some time, or put my framed jerseys up behind me. Instead, I just got cheap wood paneling from Trailer House.
Nice.
Justin, we're stoked to have you, man.
I'll send
you my Darren Sharper jersey, Adam.
Oh no!
Yeah. You can hang
Here we go.
That escalated quickly.
3 minutes and 20 seconds in, and this is how you ruin the show here. Let's do it.
I got a Ponder and a Nerve Smith I can put back there.
Yeah. I think I got a Ponder and mothballs somewhere.
Hey, that's a good segue, Adam. Let's talk about that. Former Viking tight end from the University of Alabama, Irv Smith. Kind of an enigma here for injuries and whatnot, but a good personality. He has signed a 1-year contract with the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm happy for him.
I always cheered for him to succeed, but the cards were just not stacked in his favor here during his run in Minnesota. I think he does have potential, but I got tired of hearing how he was going to break out every year.
Yeah, totally. You hear every offseason it was the same story. The coaches were praising him and, he's doing all the right things and he's going to be a big part of the offense. And then when you need him the most, he's on injured reserve or he's dropping passes down the middle of the field. And
that one drop pass that just everybody remembers.
Right. That's his low light as a Minnesota Viking, unfortunately. Now that he's gone, we're going to take the number 84 and we're going to give it to Justin Jefferson because that's a really good fit. No, best of luck for him, like you said. And where was it? Cincinnati. If he can stay healthy, that seems like a good fit for him. I'm glad we don't have to have this conversation ever again, though.
Yeah, he should get some really good one-on-one looks over there with those weapons they've got in Cincy.
Well, that's the key phrase at the end that you had there is if he can stay healthy. And, it's just kind of one of those deals where it's unfortunate, but wish him nothing but the best. Glad you got your bag. Hopefully, being in that offense with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and company, with a team that is, as long as Joe Burrow is there, by his own admission, is always going to be in a Super Bowl window. So, best of luck to you. And it's unfortunate. But for the love of all things, do not let 84 be worn by anybody. I got to disagree with you. No, JJ can have his own identity.
Moss should never even have got it.
That's a very good point, too. It's funny because he was actually number 88 in college. But, of course, Alan Page had that jersey retired and went with 84. And you're right. He probably shouldn't have. But with that being said, 93 and 84. And again, we're talking at the heartstrings of a class of 97 guy. We're talking about Randy Moss and John Randall. Those two numbers should never be worn again. Mm-hmm. But that's just me.
Didn't Randy wear 18 for a very brief time in rookie mini camp or something like that? So
yeah,
there you go. There's your fun connection with Justin Jefferson.
There you go.
But now that new rule passed and players can wear the number 0. What do you guys think of that?
Couldn't care less. You can put an @ symbol on a jersey as long as you do your job. I don't care what you wear.
Just win. Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
Remember when they did
weird.
the renumbering rules and Tom Brady just went off? He's like, I need to be able to look at the number and know what position these guys are.
Yeah, that was stupid.
That's how you know. That's how you tell everybody you're old.
Exactly. You're the greatest quarterback of all time. You can read defenses like no other than maybe Peyton Manning, and you're going to say, "Oh, I'm at a competitive disadvantage because I got to remember numbers." Come on.
It's funny you say it, but all I remember is that story about Brett Favre not knowing what a nickel corner is.
Yeah, right.
On third down, at the very end, he goes, "That's it. That's it." Oh, it's such a good story.
You'd have to be a damn good player to wear the number 0 on your jersey and actually have it look good.
Michael Parsons is going to make it look good.
Yeah,
right. I kind of think that someone like a Cordero Patterson, like a special teams guy who can come in and do all kinds of stuff on the field, you could kind of put him in number 0, and that kind of works, and that makes it look good. Otherwise, I don't know, throw it on a kicker, punter, long snapper, someone that we don't really care about. Well, but I don't want my kicker wearing 0. That's bad karma. I don't want to do that. I don't know. It's weird. I don't know what to think.
I can see a guy like Cordero doing it, and at the end having that celebration where he just throws up his number like this.
Yeah, right.
That would be pretty cool. I thought about that when you were saying it. I'm like, that makes sense.
Yeah, you can make it look good.
The only number worse than 0 to wear would be wearing a number 2, because I remember a joke that Packer buddy once said of mine. He's like, Mason Crosby, it's a good thing he is number 2 because that's what he's kicking like right now.
Well,
but I digress.
We're going to jump into DB talk today. I want to save the main thing, see if we can get some more people in. But as you guys know that watch the show, shout out Jonathan and Charlotte. You guys are always on time and tuning in. I know the feeling when the kids drive you crazy. But, yeah, we're going to talk about the positional group breakdown. When I talked to Justin and I was on his show, which I will promote this now if you guys want to go follow him. There you go on Twitter. You guys can find Purple and Gold for Days for his show. Yeah, we've been breaking down the position groups, kind of filling that void during the offseason time up until the draft. And I asked Justin what position group he would like to come in and talk about. And I'm glad you picked this because in my heart of hearts, this is where I want the Vikings to go in the draft because I still see a glaring need until they sign someone else. But, yeah, let's start there. The Vikings have 5 cornerbacks rostered right now. Kalen Barnes, Andrew Booth Jr., A. Caleb Evans, Tay Gowan, and the recently signed Byron Murphy Jr. from the Arizona Cardinals. No number assigned to him yet, but I have a feeling they're going to take a corner somewhere because that's not enough.
No, to say the least. I think he was. I heard some talk that he was going to take Patrick Peterson 7. He's got to keep following in Patrick Peterson's footsteps. But I think that's what his number was in Arizona. But no, I agree. Right now, that is the thinnest position of any of the position groups. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can make the argument for D-line with the uncertainty of Danielle Hunter and the certain uncertainty of Zadarius Smith. But having said all that, I was a little disappointed, but I wasn't outraged that they didn't bring back Duke Shelley. I can see both sides of that. I can see
when I saw what Duke got paid, though, I got sad.
That's exactly where I was going. Is just like, wait a second, that's all he went for? But they really must have. And what I had said all last year is I like Duke Shelley as a 4th cornerback or maybe a 3rd if he has to. But I don't know that I would like a guy who's good in a 3rd or 4th tier role. But then when you try to promote him to a 2nd or 1st tier role, might not always live up to those sorts of expectations. Duke Shelley, to me, is an outstanding red zone cornerback when he only has 30 yards to defend, so to speak. We can talk about some of the plays that he made this season, particularly that overtime play against the Buffalo tight end that ultimately really saved that game. so to speak. And again, a solid player, okay? But once you take somebody like that, it's kind of like the KJ Osborne conversation. He's a good, solid number 3. Can he be a number 2? We don't know. And apparently with how Flores wants to run the defense, I guess they figured with his size, Chicago tried to play him at the slot cornerback, and he just wasn't very good. So he's an outside cornerback, but, a little bit undersized. So I guess they felt that, they'll find solutions elsewhere. But as far as the rest of the secondary goes, you got a lot of what ifs. You got a what if Lewis Seen comes back. You got a what if Caleb Evans can shake the concussion thing. Andrew Booth Jr. I've used this line, and I'll use it again. I'm not counting on anything from Andrew Booth Jr., and therefore if he produces something, that's found money, because you just can't have any expectations for him, unfortunately, with all of his injury history. So
he's a lot like Herb Smith. I know we were all fans of him. He's got a lot of potential when we drafted him, and we had that conversation where we were all hoping that, hey, if he can stay healthy, he looks like the kind of player that can make an impact. Unfortunately, it was immediately that injury history hit him again. Corner. My overall thought process with corner, you can never have too many in terms of like drafting them, and right now the Vikings are really thin, so even like best case scenario, you can draft a corner and like you need one on your team. Right now you absolutely need to be going into this draft and trying to address that situation, I think, early in the process.
The problem is that the Vikings don't have those bigger number of earlier picks because of trades, so actually if you don't grab one in the first round, it's going to be rough. And Minnesota does have other needs. They might need to replace a starting edge rusher. They might need to look for a wide receiver too. And who knows? Maybe this is the year they do take a stab at a quarterback. Who knows? I don't think this should be the year with the draft capital they have. It just seems like a bad situation. But, I mean, if the player falls and is there, you kind of got to go for it, right? You got to go by your board.
Absolutely. Best player available is always, in my opinion, the route to go, because you never know. You're always an injury away. Could be a superstar. You pass up a superstar for a need. But looking at the list that we have with 5 corners, with one that has promise, one that is in a backup role, and 2 guys I know absolutely nothing about outside of Byron Murphy, this has to be a need they address. Right now I'm on spottrack.com looking at available corners, and I'll give you some names. Up at the top, Byron Jones, Marcus Peters, William Jackson, Shaquille Griffin, Bradley Roby, Ronald Darby, Eli Apple, Kyle Fuller, PJ Williams, Rock Ya-Sin, Trey Flowers, and so on and so forth.
Who was that corner in Minnesota that was tweeting about his balls again?
Oh God, that was what, 2 seasons ago?
Yeah.
Oh hey, this is the.
Oh, I didn't
even notice this. This is the perfect thing that would happen for the Vikings and to piss Twitter off completely. There is a cornerback in Denver named Lamar Jackson. Guys, go sign him. Oh my goodness, go get him right now. And he's only 24 years old. There you go.
Oh boy.
Bring him in. Bring in the Lamar Jackson jersey.
There would be a crap storm of some clickbaits out there. Vikings sign Lamar Jackson. Everybody be like, or some people be like, yeah. Oh wait, not that Lamar Jackson. That would be funny though. You're right.
There are some good names here. I like Byron Jones, Marcus Peters, Shaquille Griffin's a good player. I don't like him so much because I know he was on stacked teams, but Eli Apple, Kyle Fuller's always been good. A little older along in the tooth. PJ Williams, Rock Ya-Sin is a corner I love, and this kind of fits.
I am not down for Eli Apple.
No, I agree.
Rock Ya-Sin fits the narrative of what we've been seeing Kwesi do lately with signing younger players in their mid-20s. He is only 26 years old, so I don't know.
I want to say there's only like 5 or 6 players left on the roster that are even over 30.
Right. Yeah, that's about right.
That's so funny. Lamar Jackson, cornerback, 24, Denver. Man, I'm going to talk about that a lot just to make people mad. Chris Boyd's still out there. He had some stuff he was posting on Twitter. I don't know if he's coming back or not, but
no more Spielman rejects.
Yeah.
I really enjoy him on special teams. I don't think that if you have him as a cornerback 5 on special teams, I'm good with it. But if you're asking for a bigger role out of him, I just don't see it.
Yeah, I think the ship has sailed on a lot of those players. And Justin, you talked about it last night. It's crazy. We had that window between 2016 and 2019 where you had to get stuff done. I don't count the 2015 year because Teddy was still a big part of the equation. But transitioning from him to the Case year to now Kirk, there's a lot of guys that we loved and they're great players, but Father Time ultimately won the battle as he always does. Mm. And you were talking about some moves last night, and I'm not trying to steal your guys' show last night and bring it here, but you were talking about how, I think one of the listeners brought it up. What's the best thing and the best move this off season? Personally, I love Brian Flores because that defense gave me PTSD and nightmares. You had mentioned getting rid of Adam Thielen and Eric Kendricks, and I understand the need for that. Just echoing what we're saying here, I don't really have a question for it, but I like the fact that what you said, Kyle, of, hey, legacy players or Spielman stuff, get all of that out so you can say, hey, look, this is what we're building. Mm-hmm. Because as it sits right now for the draft especially, they're still cleaning up a shitstorm of a mess when it comes to the cap, bad contracts, and, trying to figure out where it goes in the future. So I like that point, Kyle. If you're not going to make an immediate impact, we can find that guy like Chris Boyd to do the same thing that's younger and cheaper. Mm-hmm. Not really have to worry about the money, but I digress.
Yeah, the phrase that I use is sacred cows. It's time to put them out to pasture, okay? We haven't brought his name up yet, so let's just do it real quick. We don't have to go on the topic, so to speak, but take a Dalvin Cook. And, that's another one that you could flip a coin either way. And some of the defenders of Cook would say, well, he was misused. Okay, great. I'd rather misuse a $2 million running back than a $14 million running back.
Yeah.
I mean, call me crazy. But to your point, some of the better moves have been addition by subtraction. I know we're going to save it for later, but another one that was thrown out there. Okay, we got Thielen, $13 million dead cap hit, gone. But now his dead cap hits are done after this season. They don't drag on into 24 and 25. Why didn't we post June 1st him? Well, yeah, you would have saved some more money this year, but one, you don't get it until June 1st. And number two, the only way you're freeing it up is to be putting it on next year. So that was one of those moves, was to say, okay, we are making a clean break with this guy. Now, Eric Kendricks was a little different. He didn't have as much dead money because he didn't have as much guaranteed money left or prorated signing bonuses left. So it was one of those deals where that was just a, hey, we love you, but we're just going to go in a different direction. You're older, you're too expensive, that sort of thing. But I also like the fact that they stood firm and didn't give in to the demands of one Kirk Cousins, and that they're keeping their options open. Okay, that's what Kwesi said more than anything. I want flexibility. I want options. If you look at all of the free agents that we've signed, some have been 1, some 2, some 3-year deals, but a lot of them are just 1-year deals with a lot of funny money behind them, where they're basically team-friendly team options. And if they outperform their contract and they want to come back, great. But if you decide to move on from them, there isn't a whole lot of dead cap. I mean, excuse me, with all the free agents that we have signed and all the void years we've done, if they didn't bring any of them back, I think their total dead cap hits, as it stands right now, next year would be $15 million. We paid $13 million a dead cap hit for one guy at Adam Thielen. So that's Kwesi saying, you know what, I'm doing these deals. I'm bringing these guys in. I'm trying to win on the margin, so to speak, where, I'm going to buy low on some penny stocks and hope they turn into dollar stocks. But yeah, to that point, as Kyle, of what the best move was, yeah, okay, Flores is on that list, but finally just taking a different direction and going somewhere else and not just constantly re-signing our old players because we love them. I love Adam Thielen. I know.
That's a point that I made on a previous show too, and so I want to ask you this, Justin, to get your opinion on it, because I think that this year the Vikings they're not going to say it, but this is kind of a rebuild year for the Vikings, because they had, so the first year was all about, we thought that the end of the Spielman, Mike Zimmer era, we had players we thought we could win with that were older, established players. They needed better coaching. And we ran it back. We got, 13 wins out of it? Okay? And so what they did is they looked at that roster and they said, we're not going to take those players and we're not going to get over the hurdle with it. So we are going to, like you said, we're going to rebuild this year, and that means moving on from some veteran players, and we are going to position ourselves for 2024, 2025 to have a lot of cap space and a lot of maneuverability to go out there and plug and play in the pieces that we want. So my question for you is do you think that this year is almost a rebuild, retool year for the Vikings?
I think the simplest way to answer your question is this phrase that Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell came in with was competitive rebuild. We've run that one into the ground. Last year it was 75% competitive and 25% rebuild. I think those numbers are going to slide a little more towards the equilibrium where they still want to be competitive. They're never going to take a full step back. And I don't mean tank by that. I just mean take a step back. A full rebuild or a 90% rebuild would have been to have traded Kirk Cousins, would have been to already have gotten rid of Dalvin Cook and Danielle Hunter and Zadarius Smith. That would have been a massive step towards completely rebuilding. But I think that next year is going to be closer to 50-50 where, we're still making some moves to where we're not going to just toss this season away, but we're also not going to push our chips all in because this isn't the right time to push the chips all in. So, no, I agree that this year is going to be different. And by the way, not for nothing because we haven't had the draft yet. We still got rounds 2 and 3 of free agency, but we also got to talk about that schedule. We played a really easy schedule last year. We ultimately had the 9 home games, plus we had one of our road games actually be a neutral site game where that's going to flip this year where we have only 8 home games. And, oh, by the way, first place schedule. There's nothing to sniff at. It's only a couple of teams difference here and there. But we got all 4 of the final 4 teams that were in the conference championship games. And we got a little bit step up in quarterback competition this year. So I totally agree with what your point is there, Kyle, that – they're not winning 13 games. And if they did, so much the better. We'll all be happy about it. But it's just probably not in the cards.
I think it was the right move because I really don't think that you were going to take – you were not going to add a Jalen Ramsey to this roster and suddenly you're going to win 17 games and we brought back Adam Thielen and he's going to have a 1,000-yard season and Eric Kendricks is great and everything's fantastic in Minnesota. Like, I don't think that was going to happen. No. So I do think that they've made the smart move by – choosing to do the competitive rebuild and like, hey, we're going to position ourselves well in the future.
Oh, what's funny is the best move I thought the Vikings made this offseason for sure was moving on from Ed Donatel. That had to happen. It's not even bringing in Flores. It's just moving on from Donatel. And honestly, if the defense can be even a touch better than last year, I think the Vikings could be a better team, but end the season with a worse record if that's making a lot of sense.
That is so well said, Adam. Mm-hmm. This will be defensively a better team by coach and hire alone. You're going to have younger players, but to my point that I want to bring in for all of y'all is Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell are doing what the league is doing. It's a copycat league, right? You've heard that 1,000 times. They're getting younger. This is why, and we can talk about Lamar too, because we were going to talk about it anyways, and we're almost 25 minutes in. This is why I don't think they're going to go after him. Number one, and I tried in the comments last night to say this. Well, that's one.
Yeah.
The guy that was on last night said, big Lamar Jackson fan, that's fine. I like him too. He's a dynamic athlete. You're going to pay him a ton of money on what he's worth, and you're going to lose capital over that. Number two, I want Justin Jefferson to stay. That guy last night was very adamant. He's like, you don't think JJ doesn't want Lamar here? I was like, come catch me week 8, week 9 when he's like 17th in receiving yards and not number 1. And he only has 1 touchdown through the air. Yeah, I don't think that would work out very well. And then we'd have another Stephon Diggs situation coming in real soon. And I don't want that. JJ is a generational talent, and I want him to stay here. But to my point for the team now, I think they want to do the money right. They want to get young. They want to build it the way they see fit. And I want to take that formula that they're using now, like they did in Kansas City, like they're doing in Buffalo, Cincinnati, LA with the Chargers. Find a young quarterback that you absolutely love. You don't have to pay him for 4 years, and see if you can get a little lucky and do it right.
Everyone wants to build like the Patriots until you actually start building like the Patriots.
Then you realize you don't have Bill Belichick.
Well, not only that, but it's like, and when you start releasing your Thielen and your Kendricks, all of a sudden fans are up in the air about it. When it's like, but you say you want that until you actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we want those players to stay in Minnesota their whole careers and retire and go into the Ring of Honor. That'd be fantastic.
Like the Chad Greenway, right?
But the business doesn't work that way.
Right.
And by the way, for people that don't know, Chad Greenway got royally screwed over in his last year. They asked him to cut his salary in half, told him you're going to take a reduced role. And he's like, okay, all right, I'll go for that. And then somebody gets hurt, and he's playing full-time minutes anyway, but they didn't give him a dime of that money back. So it's real easy for us to say, well, these guys are millionaires and this, that, and whatever else. Mm-hmm. But it's a business. And, it's a personal choice. I don't begrudge Adam Thielen for saying, I want to go to a place where I can be more than just the Robin to JJ because, number one, he's also got to realize that he can't even produce at the level of being a Robin to JJ anymore. And at the same time, I'm not going to say that any player is obligated to do what Harrison Smith did. Harrison Smith made that choice for himself. He figured, you know what, I got enough money and I want to stay here. That's great. I don't begrudge either side on it. But as fans, we have to understand that there's not a one-size-fits-all here. Just because Harrison did what he did doesn't obligate any other player to do that. They're playing a violent game. They're putting their personal health on the line. And at the same time, we also have to realize that it's just like, you know what? Adam didn't want to be – it's not that he didn't want to be here. So I don't want it to come across that way.
Right. I know what you mean.
But he didn't want to be here in the context of he got over 100 targets last year. He said he wants to be a bigger part of the offense. And that's a fair statement to make that he wants.
But he still didn't contribute based off those targets.
Exactly. So no,
and he hasn't been the same player he's been since he fractured his back.
Exactly. So, but I agree, Kyle. Back to your point. When you make the moves of getting rid of Thielen and Kendricks and not re-signing Dalvin Tomlinson and Patrick Peterson.
Yep.
You're telling the world this is the direction I'm going. And I will somewhat agree with your stance about Lamar. My stance on it is this. I want them to get a rookie quarterback. I prefer Anthony Richardson, but I'll settle for Will Levis because the other two at the top are just out of the question, so let's not waste any time on it. But if you took that option away from me and you told me my only two options were to sign Kirk Cousins to a 3-year extension or trade for Lamar Jackson, I'm taking Lamar in that scenario. But my overall scenario is I'll take a pass on him and let's go the rookie quarterback route. How's that for Centric?
I agree with that, and I think I would do the same. It would hurt, but I would take a superstar if he can stay healthy. Here's the question that I want. I'm not dismissing what you said. We can elaborate more. You said Will Levis or Anthony Richardson. I don't believe either one of those guys go out of the top 10. So I have a two-part question, and this is a lot. So let's digest. Number one, I've seen some mocks with Herndon Hooker coming to the Vikings in the first round. I will riot if they take that guy in the first round because I don't believe he's a first-round talent, and it's not a need for the team. All right, I don't believe that. I forgot what my second part was, so we'll go back to that later. What's that?
Was it about Will Levis maybe?
See, I'm indifferent. Tom Brady comes from Michigan. It's a weird thing, and I'm not comparing the two, but I am. I don't see a Kentucky quarterback that's super ripped and muscular making a difference. At the end of the day, the argument for you like Anthony Richardson, right? He's a hell of an athlete. He had one of the best combine days in history, but 50% completion concerns me. And guys will say, "Well, you can coach that." Can you? Because the math tells me in history that he probably isn't going to figure that out. Then the chances of it actually turning out him being a Pro Bowler or an All-Pro are very slim, but that's the name of the game at the end of the day. You've got to try. So I don't care if they do that, but I think that here's my other part. Okay. I think that this is what the Vikings are going to do. Spoiler alert, this is bland and boring. They're going to trade back, and they're going to acquire picks.
Yeah.
They're going to get rid of Cook and or Smith, and they're going to acquire picks.
Oh, yeah, Zadarius will probably get dealt on draft day.
As long as he still
doesn't want to be in Minnesota.
No, he doesn't. What were you about to say, Kyle?
I was going to say that one of the benefits of having Kirk is that he gives you the leeway to, if you don't believe in a quarterback this year, guys, you can wait. And you can draft a rookie quarterback next year where you're probably going to have more picks, more capital, more ability to move up, and maybe get one of the top 1 or 2 quarterbacks in the draft instead of, I
was actually going to ask about that. Is this year's quarterback class that much better than next year's? Because I don't really pay attention to a lot of college football, to be honest.
Caleb Williams is probably coming out next year, and he'll be sought after by half the league because
Or is it just that Vikings fans are salivating at the thought of getting a quarterback now, and they aren't really looking ahead?
And see, that's what I worry about a little bit, too, is the ponder thing of, we want a quarterback now. I don't care who it is, get one. And it's well, hold on, Kirk is fine. Let's find the right fit for the Vikings. That's what I want to see. That's how you end up with
Kellen Mond.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, here's the other point to that too, Kyle. And I thought about this a lot because I've been excited for this episode and to have Justin on. But think about this: we know what Kirk is, and I believe in my heart of hearts the window that was going to happen. And I'm using a little bit from the show you were on last night was 2018 and 2019, because the argument the last 3 years was, well, the defense has been shit. Okay. The defense wasn't shit in 2018 or 2019. And I do believe, unless the team is the San Francisco 49ers, which we don't have, or the Philadelphia Eagles entire roster, which we don't have, call it what it is, I think I know what the cap is for Kirk. An NFC championship game at the best.
So when Cousins ends up going to the 49ers and wins the Super Bowl, what are we going to do?
Say congratulations. You
we'll
wouldn't
say
have done
thank
that
you
here.
for Trey Lance in that trade, and then we'll go on. I don't know. I thought
and
about
then
that
we'll
yesterday.
have Score North running the next quarterback out of town.
Oh God!
Ooh, shots fired. No, you're right, Adam.
Well, to answer those questions, I'm with you on Hendon Hooker. I don't mind him in the second round, but no, I'm not taking him at 23. That's too much draft value and capital that we don't already have.
You will absolutely pass up a player that could have been an immediate starter in probably those three positions we talked about earlier for a guy that's a project. I think he's a project. He's got a big arm, and Tennessee had a great year this year. But he's not C.J. Stroud. He's not Anthony Richardson. He's not Bryce Young. And I don't see the value there. It's never going to go back now that we're already here. But taking quarterbacks this high, this early, just because you want to, like, that's how people get fired. And I don't want to see this guy because I like this coach and GM. I don't want their legacy to be Hendon Hooker from Tennessee. You know what I mean?
I don't want a quarterback with the last name Hooker in Minnesota.
I'm not ready to flush the whole franchise again. I'm not ready for that.
That's what I fear. And you know what? Like I said earlier, I use this phrase a lot, but that's what the math suggests is going to happen. The chances of you finding a Burrow or Allen or Mahomes are very, very slim. So if you're going to go, find the guy that you're comfortable with. But at the end of the day, we have the luxury, like to your point, Kai, we have the luxury of waiting a year. I'm not saying that I put my name and tattoo Kirk on my forehead, but I'm okay because I know what he is. And the one thing that he has above all else is availability. I know what I'm going to get, and he's not going to miss any games. Give me one more year of that, 2 tops, and we'll figure it out. Ideally, they find a guy with value this year. He sits completely, learns under Kirk for a year or two, and then he's ready to go. And you still have a couple of years on the rookie deal to figure it out. But I don't know. I think they're going to trade back. And we did this last year. We sat and we do a live draft coverage every year on this show, Justin, since COVID started. And we're going to wait 3 freaking hours for them to trade all the way back to 31. It's going to happen. Get ready, guys.
More than likely. No, I agree. Well, to your point about Cousins, and Kyle, you've heard me say this because you've heard me say this on our show as well as on Spaces. Here's my dilemma with Kirk. Like you said, I know what he is. NFC Championship game is a 2% at best. His ceiling for me is wild card round, divisional round of the playoffs. As a 44-year-old Vikings fan who's never even seen the team go to, much less win a Super Bowl, I'm kind of at the point where I'm done being content being in the middle. Yes, if we moved on from Kirk, it's likely impossible. Well, there's 3 possibilities. You're either going to get a guy who's just as good as Kirk, who'll get you to the same spot. You're going to get you a guy that's not going to get you as far as Kirk right away, which means you're taking a step back. Or you might find a guy that'll take you further. I'm willing to risk taking a step back for short term for the long term possibility of getting better. Sometimes being in the middle, it's harder to get to that last step than it is taking a step back to being not in the middle and not so good, and then taking 2 steps forward. So you're right, though. It's a very delicate balance because, we've had this discussion, and I'm going to take the name Patrick Mahomes out for a second. I don't want to talk about the actual results. I want to talk about the process. What's up, Mike? There's my partner. I hope you guys had a good show. When Kansas City went to the playoffs 5 straight years, won 2 wildcard games, and then lost 3 of them, and then lost 2 divisional round of the playoffs. It wasn't Alex Smith's fault. Well, all I want to say, it wasn't Kirk Cousins' fault. The defense, the offensive line, the offensive coordinator in 2018, all these other things that we hear about, it's not Kirk Cousins' fault. Fine. It wasn't Alex Smith's fault. But what Andy Reid came to the conclusion of was, I've reached the pinnacle that this guy can bring me to. And it was a humongous risk. And part of the flaw in the discussion is it turned out better than even Kansas City thought it could turn out. So now it's just go draft Patrick Mahomes. Okay, nobody's saying it like that, but what we're saying is
that so much on this show.
We're not saying it like that. We're saying it's at some point when you realize, okay, there are some that believe that if you build your defense to a point where it's maybe top 10, top 15, and you maybe put a couple of extra pieces on that offensive line that Kirk Cousins could get past the divisional round of the playoffs with an NFL team. I don't personally believe that. I think that based on 2018 and 19, and I get it, he's a better quarterback now than he was those years ago, but he's also 35. So what makes you think he's going to be able to continue at this level? I don't know. I'm willing to give up my safe, comfortable wild card divisional round team. And even if that means we're not competitive for a year or two, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to be the Lions for a decade. But I get your overall point, though, that I don't want to force a quarterback pick for a Hendon Hooker. That wouldn't be right either. Right. I'm kind of 50-50 on Will Levis. If Will Levis is there at 23, I definitely take him. If he's there at 16, I don't mind trading up 7 spots to get him. I'm not trading into the top 10 to get Will Levis. If I'm trading into the top 10 or top 5, I'm doing it for Anthony Richardson. So there was one more point you made, and I forgot what it was.
I'm going to circle back a little bit, though. Yeah. We're talking about knowing what we've got in players, and if the Vikings go out and get Lamar Jackson hasn't been able to prove he can get over the hump either.
I totally agree. What I said in my video Sunday, and that's on Purple and Gopher Days, is my stance is not about even Cousins. It's about good, not great quarterbacks making market value. Okay. You've got quarterbacks on rookie contracts. You've got the true elite quarterbacks, and there's only 3 of them, maybe 4. And then you've got all these other guys in the middle that clearly guys like Lamar and Kyler Murray and Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott and Jared Goff, clearly those guys are better than Teddy Bridgewater and Andy Dalton and Jameis Winston, etc. But when you're paying them $40 million a year, roughly on average, that makes it difficult to build up a team around them. So then it becomes a question. Yeah, I don't want to trade one good, not great quarterback at market value for another good, not great quarterback at market value. I don't. Now, I'm willing to, if those are my only 2 choices, like I said earlier, I'm willing to do it for Lamar because maybe a younger guy who has a different skill set might be able to push you through. But the whole point is that I don't want a good, not great quarterback at market value. I just don't, no matter who they are.
Understandable.
And I do think Kirk could win a Super Bowl. If Matthew Stafford can win a Super Bowl, like you could put Kirk Cousins on a team where he can win you a Super Bowl. The issue with him is that Minnesota doesn't have the time to build to get him to that position right now, where, like you said, if you were to trade him to the 49ers, that's an easy team to trade him to. He definitely could win it with that team with the assets around him. So when it comes to the comparison with Alex Smith, I think is a really, really on point comparison that you made there, Justin. I do like that because the ceiling, they do have the same ceiling, in terms of where they're at and where the teams are at right now. So that's a good point. I like that.
To echo that, Kyle and Justin, is the other part is that's not the philosophy that this team has, and I kind of like it, even though I would do what the Rams did, sell the farm. Hey, I don't have first-round pick for 5 years, but we won a Super Bowl. I would do that, but I just don't see them doing that. This general manager is all about precision and value, and I don't see them giving a first for Xavier Howard and going out and getting Myles Garrett from the Browns for 3 good players and blah, blah, and just getting rid of everything to build a superstar team for somebody else. I don't see them. And you're right. The time is the biggest thing. It crept up on us like crazy. When Kirk got here, I was like, damn, he could be here for 8 years.
Well, Vikings fans got to be sick of the whole we're one piece away. They have got to be sick
That's
of
the thing.
Right.
Yeah.
To your point about going the Rams version, the time to have done that would have been 2019.
Yep.
When Jalen Ramsey was traded from the Jaguars to the Rams, there was a lot of talk in the media, the guys that do daily radio shows or podcasts now. Yeah, they should be interested in Jalen Ramsey. Imagine pairing Jalen Ramsey back in 2019. Granted, Xavier Rhodes had taken a step back from 2017, and he was starting to his decline. But for those 2 years, those last 2 years of Xavier Rhodes in 18 and 19, the first 2 years of Cousins, now you've got Trey Waynes, who's a solid corner, but nothing spectacular. Yeah. Now he's your 3. Getting back to the conversation we had about the DBs now, about, all right, we got this guy, and now he's the number 3 guy as opposed to trying to expect him to be the number 2 guy. This roster is not in a position where you could go full Rams right now. And it hasn't been since you lost that divisional round of the playoff game to the 49ers, Stephon Diggs' last game here. those were the years to do it. These are not the years to do that in. They're not close enough.
Speaking of digs, your team's unhappy. I already have a jersey. You can come back to Minnesota if you want.
Exactly. There you go.
You'll get some good coverage. We got another guy who's going to get a lot of doubles. So
let me ask another question about the corners, because right now we got a big glaring hole at nickel corner. Mm-hmm. Not that Chandon Sullivan was great last year by any means, but finding a player to fill that hole is going to be important, especially in today's NFL with how the inside receivers and big tight ends are going to be major problems.
Yeah, I agree. We were talking about Rock Ya-Sin earlier. Of all the names, and I know we're circling back to an earlier topic there, but of all of the free agents that are left still out there, that's the one guy that I would want them to pursue. All due respect to Marcus Peters, he doesn't fit the profile age-wise, and I don't know how much money he would want. I mean, he's not all that different from a Patrick Peterson type, except that I don't think that Marcus Peters is a Hall of Famer, and I think Patrick Peterson will be. But having said all that, if you get a guy like a Rock Ya-Sin, then you've got some options, because Byron Murphy can also move in to play the slot as well. He's going to be the starter on the outside. We all know that, but he gives you some positional flexibility. And the other name to keep in mind, and I'm not sure how keen I am on this idea, but I've heard it in too many places now to ignore it anymore, is maybe have Cameron Bynum be your nickel cornerback. Not saying I'm in love with that idea, but it's something to consider, because you don't want to be pigeonholed on draft night to have to take a cornerback first round. Okay.
Right.
I don't mind them taking another cornerback. Like if they did make some trades and they got into the second round and they found somebody there that's like the fifth or sixth corner in a relatively deep corner draft, that's fine. But I don't want them to be taking the fourth cornerback off the board with the 23rd overall pick. So if you were to bring in a Rock Ya-Sin or some other free agent cornerback, that allows you, Kwesi's favorite word, draft night, a little more flexibility there. So
already starting taglines. We already know what they're going to be.
Oh, absolutely.
Hey, you know what's fun too? This will piss off all the fans. Your dream comes true, Justin. We moved Cam Bynum down there to nickel corner. Guess what? We draft another safety 2 years in a row.
Oh, yes.
Hey, that would piss the entire fan base in the state of Minnesota.
And not the safety that people want.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. For the second year in a row, by the way. But
we've echoed this on the show, and I know you feel the same way, but I am pumped to see what Louis Cine brings, because I watched his highlight tape 2 days ago at work. Oh, my goodness, that dude hits hard. I can't wait for him to get on the field. Excited about that.
What in the hell were they doing with him just farting around when he was healthy? We couldn't even get him on. That defense was terrible. They couldn't have got him on the field at all, doing anything at all. Not whatever. What the hell? I get mad still thinking about that.
So how do you really feel?
When Kyle West gets fired up, it's my favorite part of the show. Adam stays even keel and keeps us within the realm of reality, but West gets fired up. It's my favorite time to be listening on the show.
Yeah, ask me about paying a running back.
Well, oh boy, that's another 20 minutes.
We can talk about whatever too. We can talk about that. Yeah. I wanted to hit the Kirk Lamar thing because it has, and I want to know this too because everybody else does, and I want my Christmas present and birthday present on the same day. Where are these odds coming from?
I was just going to say
information to make us number two.
Those are off-site books. Those are like fan duels and stuff like that. Those are not official NFL, or those are not official Las Vegas bookies.
I was just gonna say, out of the four of us here, is anyone actually willing to raise their hand and say that Lamar Jackson will be our starting quarterback this season?
No, I would say.
I mean,
10%, maybe 15%. I think is what
I even think that's high.
I haven't heard the Vikings coming out and saying they're not interested yet. I have seen some reports saying that the Patriots are saying they're not interested.
Atlanta said today, the owner today said, I like that kind of player, but he hasn't proven he can stay healthy, so they're out on him. And if any team represents Lamar represents a city, Atlanta was the one. I mean, he would have billboards in that city. But they're like, I don't know if the dude can stay healthy. I don't know if we're interested.
That being said, nobody's telling the truth right now. Everybody's lying because it's a big game of poker leading for free agency, a big game of poker going into the draft. When the the Carolina Panthers trade up to the number one pick, we still don't know who they're going to take.
Right.
You should know when you're trading up to number one, okay, we're taking this guy. So everybody's keeping their cards close to the vest. One thing about Spielman that did actually, got to give him some credit for, is he spent 5 minutes with Harrison Smith. And that was it. He said, I'm taking you if you're there, or I'm going to come up and get you. But I'm not going to talk to you for an hour to let people know that I'm interested in you. See you, bye.
Yeah.
Okay. So Journalism 101. Why is this information being disseminated to me? Who's trying to further their agenda? For example, this Lamar Jackson situation. Is this coming from his camp, him and his mom? Is it coming from the Vikings camp? Is it coming from the Cousins camp that, I wanted a 3-year deal, and then I said, all right, I'll take a 2-year deal, but I want it all guaranteed, and you're only offering me a 1-year deal guaranteed? All right, I'll put some stuff out there just to drum it all up here. Because at the end of the day, everybody's got an agenda. Everybody's trying to further their client's cause or their player's cause or the team's cause. So everything we're hearing right now, I'm sure everybody is saying that they're all interested. But to circle back to a point that you made about timing, and I said this last night, Lamar Jackson's biggest problem right now is that this is 1 year removed from the Deshaun Watson situation and how much Cleveland had to give up and how much they had to pay him, and the Russell Wilson situation where how much Denver gave up and ultimately paid him, and how those two, now again, Deshaun, okay, he's rusty, hadn't played in almost 2 years. We get all that, but it's kind of like the Herschel Walker trade with the Vikings. Nobody has done a trade like that since. Why? Because they saw how awful it was for the team that made that trade, and nobody's going to be dumb enough to do something like that again. So when Kirk Cousins signed with the Vikings, he blew up the quarterback market, getting a full and guaranteed deal. And all of these other quarterbacks that came after him all got bucket loads of money. Well, now you've seen after 5 years, okay, what did I say earlier? Good, not great quarterbacks getting their market value limits your ability to build up a team around them. So now people are like, no, we need to bring the quarterback market values down again. And unfortunately, Lamar's the one guy who hasn't gotten his money. Good for Kyler Murray to get his contract signed last year before those other two before Wilson and Watson, completely fell off the face of the earth, so to speak. So that's another thing that's working against against Lamar right now.
If teams didn't have to give up those 2 firsts to really even try to start conversations with Lamar Jackson, this would be a completely different situation.
100%.
Having said that, you guys had made the question, you put it out there earlier. Where would they get the money from? It's not that the Vikings are flushed full of money, but it's doable under the right circumstance. The problem is there is about 17 dominoes that would have to fall in order for it to work. You got to find a team that wants Kirk Cousins. You got to find a team that Kirk Cousins also wants to go to, which those are dominoes 1 and 2 right off the bat that are extremely difficult. Then you've got to negotiate with Baltimore. But it doesn't necessarily have to be 2 first-round picks. That's just kind of your starting point of negotiation. For example, I'll remind you, in 2008, the Kansas City Chiefs franchise tagged Jared Allen. The Vikings gave up a first and 2/3 because they worked out a deal where they didn't end up giving up 2 firsts for Jared Allen. And so the offer sheet, if you literally just sign him straight up and you don't negotiate with the team you're taking him from, yeah, you got to pay him 2 first-round picks. But there's ways to get around it to where we're saying, okay, we'll take this guy off your hands under the condition of that this is the deal that we'll give you. So let me be clear. I'm not saying that I think it's going to happen or that I want it to happen. We've already addressed that. I'm just saying it's not as impossible as it seems to be on the surface, but that gets into salary cap situations, everything else. It's just, I don't like the idea. It's too complicated. It's not going to happen more than likely. See, that's journalism. You say more than likely. You never deal in absolutes. But, right, gentlemen, is it feasible? Is it possible? Yes. Likely, not so much.
I got 2 things. First of all, Mike, thank you for joining us.
Mike,
I love that you let me in on those spaces and talk my nonsense. I really appreciate you watching our show.
Mike is the best. King of Viking spaces. There you go.
I agree. Number 2, the thing about Lamar – and I know that somebody in his camp has to have thought it. I don't know that they've said it because he's dealing with people that he trusts, which is going to be an echo chamber, whether he wants that or not. The offer the Ravens gave him is what I think his value is. And I think he took that personal based on what you said, Justin, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, whatever. The problem is he called their bluff expecting them not to, oh my gosh, they're not going to call my bluff too. And that's exactly what happened. And he's going to end up driving his value down doing that. I feel bad for him because he should get paid. And somebody put it in that way last night. When you give them 4 years of MVP season, getting to the playoffs, staying relevant, being this big enigma of a player he's dynamic. That's the word I think of when I think of him. I think what they offered him is his value. I just don't know that he's aware that that's what his value is. And it's not a slap in the face to him. And it's not saying, well, these guys are worth more than you. because a team does something stupid like sign Deshaun Watson for that much does not mean 31 other teams have to and will do that. So
exactly.
I think he's going to stay in Baltimore. I don't see why not. People love him there. Plus, they've built the team for him. That team runs the ball great, and the defense is awesome. That's all they do there. You get him a good wide receiver, he'll be happy. I don't see it because anywhere he goes, minus maybe, I don't know, I can't even think of a team that would be great off the top of my head. Maybe the Colts because Atlanta said they're out, or maybe the Jets. You got to build the team around him. That team is custom fit for him if he can just accept, hey, we'll give you a 4-year deal. We'll give you this much guaranteed. But somebody in his camp is telling him, no, try to get more, try to get more. And what's going to end up happening is you're aiming for up here while you're sitting at this step, and you're going to go one run below at the end of the day, which is what I think is going to happen with him. But
he's unfortunately the guy that ended up getting squeezed into what's referred to as a stinkhole. Like, you guys play fantasy football. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But, like, let's say there's 12 teams in your league, and the top 5 picks are solid. You know, it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you got the 6th pick. And now it's just like, well, do I take the 2nd quarterback? Do I take the 3rd wide receiver? Do I take the 1st tight end? That's what's called the single. Lamar Jackson, he's saying to himself, if Daniel Jones Jones gets this much, how am I not getting more than that?
Well, if I can echo on that too, because this is the time. If you were going to sign him, you do it, and if you find a number he likes and you're okay with, do it now. Because, like we said, look at what Kansas City did. I hate to keep using him as an example, but by the time the end of that contract comes around and he has to sign another, Patrick Mahomes is playing for a discount. It looks crazy at first. That's why I don't get mad about the Kirk thing. His agent, first ballot Hall of Famer, we know that.
No kidding.
But looking at it now, when he's making $32 million a year and he's been with the team he's comfortable with, got a coach that likes him, all-star wide receiver, he's playing for $34 million a year. Dude, sign him yesterday. I'm cool with that. So that's the kind of idea that you got to have with Lamar when it comes to the guaranteed money and all that, because this cap's going to keep going up. The TV numbers are going to get bigger, and that number for him is going to go down in percentage of how it affects your team. Mm-hmm. But that initial one is one like guys like myself are like, oh my God, that's too much money. But when you bring up Daniel Jones, I could talk about Daniel Jones for an hour. I don't know why the hell they did that with him. I guess you just got to go with it. The coach sees something.
He's their guy. I mean, he's their guy, I guess.
I guess.
But that's the
fear of ending up with worse.
That's exactly it. Daniel Jones is not worth the contract that he got from a roster construction perspective. I'm not saying he's not worth his money, because as a player, you're worth whatever you can get. So let me be clear about what I am and I'm not saying there. But if you're the New York Giants, all right, option A is to pay more than what he really should be getting paid from a roster construction standpoint, or B, we got to draft a guy and start over. That's the conundrum you get into with good, not great quarterbacks. And there's different tiers of good, not great. Daniel Jones is better than Teddy Bridgewater. He's better than Jameis Winston. He's better than Andy Dalton.
Look at how long the Bengals sat on Andy Dalton.
But that's the thing. But if you don't bring Daniel Jones back, then you're starting over again. And like you said earlier, Kyle, coaches and general managers, they're playing to keep their jobs. They know what they got in Daniel Jones, and it's better than what they think that they could get right away. So that's what ends up happening as to why these quarterbacks that are good, not great, are getting the contracts they're getting. And unfortunately for Lamar, he's got the other thing working against him of being a running quarterback who has missed some time. Sometimes it's just the reality of the situation with that type of skill set, and sometimes it's, other things. But it's unfortunate for him.
Head coaches too are afraid of those changes because it makes them look bad.
Mm-hmm.
I poo-poo on Daniel Jones a lot because I thought he was very overrated. But I will say, watching him with
You're
that
just
coach,
pissed over that bet you had with your friend.
It is 100%. That's
what was that? What was that?
So shout out to my coworker Donnie here. He's a New York Giant fan. We made a deal, and I did this on mathematics. I'm not a gambler at all, but if I'm going to do it, I'm going to go with something where the odds telling me I have a good chance of winning.
Mm.
I said we did a QBR. In the history of since Daniel Jones has been in the league and Kirk Cousins has been in the league, Kirk has always had a better QBR. Well, lo and behold, the one year I make a bet, he has a better QBR, and they just happen to knock us out of the playoffs. So I had to eat shit twice on that.
No.
But I call him White Teddy Bridgewater, man. I did. He's great. I mean, he's good. He's not great. Fine. But I did see improvement, and it speaks to that coach with how he turned Josh Allen around from being just a wild man who's playing, kind of reckless to precision sniper kind of quarterback to making Daniel Jones playing a system that's dummy proof and then using his legs when you have to. He did a great league last year.
Absolutely.
And I think just for that market alone, another variable you got to throw in, if the New York media, if you go to the divisional round and you get rid of your quarterback, they would riot.
Oh, absolutely.
Those guys love him. I don't think he's awesome. But we're all in agreement here, man. You
Daniel
have to overpay
Jones
a little bit.
Jones needs to give a chunk of his contract to his coach, and he needs to give a smaller chunk to Ed Donatil. So there you go.
Well, we're running.
Does anyone else think it'd be absolutely hilarious if the Jets decided to get Lamar Jackson and give up on Aaron Rodgers?
Oh, that'd be great. That would be awesome.
That'd be hilarious. I don't want Rodgers back here again. He'd be pissed off all over again. But
nah, he'd just retire, and then Green Bay won't get anything for him.
Exactly.
So I'd be fine with that situation.
Aaron Rodgers will not retire the same year as Tom Brady. He's not sharing that spotlight.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
he's come back. He's turning into Favre all over again. He'd go play somewhere else out of spite, just to play the Packers and beat them.
What do you think is going to happen with Aaron Rodgers, Justin?
Honestly, at this point, I don't even care. You know,
that's fair
really honestly don't. Like back in 2007, when Favre retired from the Packers after throwing an interception in the NFC Championship game, I partied like it was 1999, thinking, okay, he's finally gone. And then he does the comeback thing and he throws the team into turmoil. So it was kind of fun to watch that. But the difference with Favre is it was a contained turmoil, so to speak, in that Favre was retired and he was gone for 4 months and then came back in the middle of the summer and started stirring up the pot. Whereas Rodgers has been stirring this cauldron for 2.5 years. It's played itself out to where it's not even fun anymore to watch, to talk to my Packer buddies and be like, hey, what's going on? It's worn out. It's worn out its welcome, so to speak. So as far as what I think is going to happen, I think he's not going to retire. I agree. He's not going to want to go into the Hall of Fame with Tom Brady. He's going to want his own day. Whether he goes back to Green Bay, goes to New York, and goes somewhere else, I don't know. I don't care. I'm just ready to be done with it. Let's move on.
We are not going to get Aaron Rodgers doing the pants on the ground dance. It's not happening.
2 years ago, I would have been okay with that. 2 years ago, I would have been okay having Rodgers, go into exile in New York or somewhere else for a year and coming back and play with us so that he could follow in Favre's footsteps. Follow in Favre's footsteps, except actually completing it. But at the same time, it's not even worth it anymore to me. I mean, yeah, if it did happen, I would, I supported Favre and I hated Favre far more than I hated Rodgers. So I suppose I would do it.
Well, we're talking about NFC quarterbacks. I want to hear your opinion on Justin Fields. What you think of that guy?
Sure. Well, Kyle, make your point first, real quick. Go ahead.
I was just going to say real quick that I'm tired of the mentality where, like someone, I think it was Adam, we're one player away, and Minnesota creates these really short windows of opportunity where it's like, hey, we got Brett Favre.
What's up, Mafia?
We can win for 2009, and that's it, folks. It's like I want to move past that, and can we have like an actual window to build a team and win with? Can we try that for a change?
Like I didn't mind it in 2009 because you had brought in Jared Allen earlier.
Fun. Yeah.
You had brought in Pat Williams earlier. You had Adrian Peterson in his prime. That is
Percy Harvin.
Percy Harvin they ended up drafting, but that I didn't mind. But you had to go into it eyes wide open to know that was going to be. When they brought him back the second time, I'm just like, this is a mistake. He's not going to be motivated. He's not going to have it anymore. He had his one shot and we blew it, but with Favre, again, what's different about it is I hated him because, again, I graduated high school. I graduated high school in '97, so that was right in his prime with him and Mike Holmgren and Reggie White leading the Packers to back-to-back Super Bowls. And I'm just like, I hate this guy. I don't want him. I'd rather win with Tavares Jackson than with Brett Favre. Okay, well, now that you're signed and now you got the jersey on, well, okay, yeah, but with Rodgers, I would. 2 years ago, I would have done it and I would have been happy with it. Now I don't. But as far as Justin Fields goes, I actually like Justin Fields. I wanted the Vikings to get Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields right now is in – I'm trying to find a better comparison, but think of it like this. Justin Fields is nowhere near Jordan, Pippen, and Kobe and Shaq. But I want everybody to remember, they didn't win any titles without Phil Jackson. Okay. Jordan and Pippen were together for a couple of years. Kobe and Shaq were together for a couple of years. And until they got the right coach and the right system and the right person to get them in the right mentality, they didn't win championships. Now, Justin Fields is in exile in Chicago. That franchise right now is a train wreck. Hopefully, this new coach and GM, maybe they'll surround him with better talent. But Justin Fields was put in a position to fail by being drafted by the Chicago Bears. Now, I'm just going to say it, the Kirk stands who didn't want to hear us, Kirk truthers say, I'd rather have Justin Fields than Kirk Cousins. And, finally, Kirk has a great season, much better than Justin Fields were.
Justin Fields is almost a Viking. Let's not forget that.
Put Justin Fields with Kevin O'Connell and see what happens, as an example. And for anybody that wants to talk about Russell Wilson and how much trash he was last year in Denver, you put Kirk Cousins on that train wreck of a franchise with that train wreck of a coach, he doesn't have as good a year as he did this year, ladies and gentlemen. So I think Justin Fields has got more to him that has been shown thus far. Whether he'll actually get to that level or not depends on what Chicago ends up doing, whether they end up holding on to him, whether they, as I said, surround him with the right talent and with the right coaching staff. I like Justin Fields, and yes, I would have been happy if they had pulled off that trade to get him. I would have been. I was stumping for him.
You feel like he has the arm talent to succeed in the NFL?
Yes, with the right coaching staff, absolutely. I think you put him with a Sean McVay, a Kevin O'Connell, a Dable put him in New York with Dable. Okay, like you said, look what he did with Daniel Jones. Look what Josh Allen was before him and what he was after him. I think he has the capability if he's in the right system, but is he a transcendent enough player to where he'll succeed no matter what system he's in? No, I won't go that far. But I do think that there's more to him than what meets the eye at this point.
Kyle, I have to echo this. I didn't want to jump over anybody. I know what's going to happen, and this could happen with Lamar too. This is big brain stuff here, guys. Not really, I'm being sarcastic, but it is. This is what you can do because this is a month away. We're a month away from the draft. You can go get all the players you want for this year to make your team satisfied, to fill your belly for the season. Mm-hmm. You can trade for him, or you can trade for him on draft night. I fully believe the Jets will trade for Aaron Rodgers on draft night, and they don't have to. After they make a selection, or the Packers are like, damn, we're not going to get 2 firsts for him. We'll take that and this player, or next year, blah, blah, blah. Like,
right.
The same thing can happen with Lamar. They could wait till day 3 of the draft when nothing's going on and be like, hey, we got the guys we wanted. They're going to make our team awesome this year. You want to talk about 24 and 25? Let's go. I fully believe that's still on the table, and that would be a smart big brain thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you miss out on a guy, and let's say, the Jets and whatever, and they traded away. Well, what happens if the guy that they knew they could have had is there at 13, and they're sitting there like, shit. Now we got a guy that might play 1 or 2 years for us. They'd be pissed. But you can wait a little bit. That's to answer your question. I know you asked Justin, but I'm like, you could still wait till after the draft to do it.
Yeah.
Why not?
There's no hard deadline on that. What's up,
Skull Mafia? Says, waiting for that Hunter trade. I know it's coming. I hope not. I would like to see Zadarius go because he does not want to play here.
I don't know about that, Skull, and I'll tell you why. Right now, Daniil Smith. I almost crossed those two guys.
Denarius.
Yes, exactly. Daniil Hunter's cap hit right now is $13 million and change. If they trade him, his dead cap hit will be $18. He's got a bit of a poison pill in his contract because they've renegotiated him so many times that he's got so much prorated signing bonus that if you're going to trade Daniil Hunter, you better get at least a second or a first round pick for him so that you're absorbing $18 million of dead cap hit, but you're getting something significant of value back. I don't necessarily disagree with you, Skull Mafia, on the idea that Hunter won't be back. I'm just saying the price has got to be right before I'm trading away that guy when I would have to eat $18 million dead. And so basically go -5 from where I'm at right now. What do you guys think?
I still think he's too good of a player for the Vikings to be willing to move on right now. He's one of those cornerstone pieces that you want out there on defense.
As long as he doesn't have another tweak, we're good. He's still young.
Yeah.
I don't want to have Minnesota replace 2 starters at the edge.
That too.
That too. Very good point. Very good point. I'll ask you guys this. Do you think Zadarius Smith is gone? Do you think there's any chance of reconciliation with that guy, or do you think that the ship has sailed there?
I have this wild theory that they're just going to call him on his bluff and be like, hey, you're under contract. You want to play for us? Play for us. You don't want to play for us? Sit out. Be a year older next year. I think they're going to call him on his bluff.
I thought it was weird. I said it on the show, Justin. I think I said it in one of the spaces you and Mike were in. It's just so weird that a guy posts like a farewell before, and he's like Kyle said, he's under contract. I'm like, and the drama seeker in me, the fan in me, the reality TV watcher in me wants to know, like, why did you hate it so much? The guy that was the problem has been fired. Mm-hmm. You get to play for Flores? Dude, Why do you want to leave? Why do you want to leave so bad? Because from
like
all accounts, everywhere, this locker room is fixed.
And so the Vikings were so kumbaya, we're all good, we're all great, we're a player-friendly team. Every now and then, you got to put your foot down a little bit and be like, hey, no, you are under contract for this team right now. You don't get to just go to Instagram and say, hey, by the way, I'm done, because what are you telling the next round of free agents that you're signing? Oh, you don't like it here? You don't like your contract? All you got to do is go on social media and bitch about it, and you can get out of the Vikings. We're not doing that.
Once the director started coming off the board in the draft, I'm sure there's going to be some offers coming in.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And that's where you have to listen and be interested.
Mary, what surprise do you think the Vikings are going to give us? Give us the specifics on that if you think you have an inkling or a guess.
The Panthers says they're going to surprise people with their picks.
I call BS on that all day.
Yeah.
And I know that they say it because all these guys are aware of cameras and places around. But fun fact, I don't know if I told you this, Justin, but I was in the airport the other day, about a week or two ago. Andy Dalton comes walking through baggage claim, and there's Josh McCown. And I hit my buddy, Donnie, who I mentioned earlier. He's like, oh, shit, man, look, it's the Red Rifles over here, the beige water pistol, as we call him. And Josh McCown, I'm like, oh, I remember him. Like, he's from here. Cool story. He's seen in front of cameras shaking CJ's hand, and they're BSing after like the pro day and just shooting shit. And he goes, you want to go play ball? Let's go find a court. He goes, when you're in Carolina, we'll find one. And I was like, there's cameras there. You didn't accidentally drop that.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole smoke screen thing was really cool. But if I'm the Panthers, that's the guy I'm taking. I like Bryce Young, and I think he's like just stupid gifted. I heard a story about him recently. I think it was on Cowherd or whatever. He said he'll go out and run receiver routes for fun, and he does them perfectly. He's just naturally gifted. I don't trust a quarterback under 6 foot tall that's not named Drew Brees. I don't believe it. So I wouldn't take him at 1. But either way, I have to say going forward for the draft, Carolina and Houston are going to get like 10-year franchise guys. I love both of those quarterbacks, but I love what I saw when he had to play an NFL team in that bowl game against Georgia. They should have won that game.
Mm-hmm.
They should have. But he balled out, and he kind of leveled up in that game for me because the whole myth, those Ohio State quarterbacks, blah, blah, blah. That dude is good. He is very good. So whoever they choose, whatever, I'm going to laugh so freaking hard if they're like, Anthony Richardson, number 1. I'm like, oh, God. That's a gamble, dude. You don't trade up for that on a gamble. You go for the surefire winner.
Right.
When you trade up for that.
That would be an interesting move because they didn't need to trade up that high if that's who their guy was. But maybe they think that, you know what, we're not leaving it to any chances. I do want to circle back to Za'Darius and Danielle Hunter. I did see your comment in there, Mafi, so I'll get that. Yes, the problem with Danielle Hunter is that he's only got $4.9 million in salary this year, and he's not going to want to play for that. So there is a balancing act of, at the end of the day, he's only got $4.9 million, and he's taking enough team-friendly deals where he's going to want something more there too. So that's a very delicate situation with Danielle Hunter. As far as Za'Darius Smith goes, they signed him to a 3-year deal where they knew it was a 1-year prove-it deal, and that it was funny money behind it. And Za'Darius for the first half of the season, he outperformed it. For the second half of the season, after he got that knee contusion in Buffalo, was just kind of mediocre at best. And I hope you're right. I hope they do just call his bluff or use him as a trade chip. They use him as a trade chip, that's fine. But to your
I'm
point,
fine with that too.
To your point, if you want to get out of your current employment situation, you don't go put it on blast on social media and make it more difficult for the team you're trying to get away from to accommodate you. You're hurting yourself by running your mouth on Twitter and stuff.
Keep it in the building.
Guess what? If you don't say anything, the team that you don't want to be there, they've got options.
We're not surprised, though. He did the same thing in Green Bay.
This is very, very, very true. So it's just like you're hurting yourself by running your mouth like that. It's just like keep your mouth shut, and after you're gone, go ahead and say whatever you want. All right, what's up?
Wes says, Justin, I've seen it on the show many times how we should get wide receiver Trey Palmer from Nebraska. Him and Jefferson are both LSU kids, and they have the same wide receiver coach. What do you think about that?
I like Trey. He's probably not quite as high on the board as some of the other receivers there, but if they ended up with that guy, I would be totally happy. My dark horse and the guy that – I mean, obviously, if Addison fell to us, I take him. If Flowers is there to us, I take him. Circling back all the way to the points earlier about what are we going to do at 23 with all the different needs that we have, and is wide receiver the best use of draft capital? Maybe, maybe not. But the one guy that I really am interested in is Tank Dell. And the reason I say that is he's about 5th or 6th on the list. And again, if you trade back from 23 to 31, pick up some additional picks, and then move into the back half or second half of the second round and pick up a guy like that in the second round, I also think, much like Trey, would be a very good Robin to JJ's Batman. But no, Wes, very good question, and I do like that guy. And if they ended up getting him, I'd be set. I'd be fine. Again, I want to get somebody who can step in right away and be the number 2 so we can keep KJ Osborne as the number 3 wide receiver. I'm sorry, I don't think he can be a 2. But
looks like Skull Mafia wants some Aaron Rodgers action.
Yeah. No. I'm not, no, thank you.
Anthony,
I would do that for Richardson.
I know. I had a joke about it.
Yeah.
I really like. I really would like the kid from Ohio State because he was there when Olave was there, and the other guy too, Jackson Smith and Jigba. He's great. He won't be anywhere near 23.
Right. I didn't mention him because he ain't gonna be there.
Yeah, he's not gonna be there. This is interesting, Skull Mafia. I don't know if the Vikings want to get rid of Hunter. I'm with Adam and pretty much everyone else here. I think he stays. Maybe it's Za'Darius and Cook. I'm with you though. You can't pay Cook $14 million, and we talked about this on this show. It's been mentioned ad nauseum on other shows. And I'm going to circle back on this because this is how I feel now, being a football fan and avidly studying this team in the NFL for over a decade now, sitting in a lazy boy chair in my house, not in a gym or anything. But if you're going to go off that thing that Mike was circling around a lot on his space and everything else, Super Bowl winning teams don't pay running backs. You don't have to. Mm-hmm. And to Justin's point, steal your words, I'd rather pay another guy $7 million for 2 years and figure it out, because Cook's only had 1 year where he's healthy. And yeah, you mentioned earlier, maybe he was misused, whatever. All those times of whatever, I'm not even going to call it an excuse. The reason is 1 year closer to him being out of his prime. Mm-hmm. I don't care. That's the thing with Cook. If he had never said, I refuse to take a pay cut, this is a completely different situation. But since he's been super adamant,
didn't exactly have an amazing offensive line in front of him, and he played most of last season in a shoulder harness.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I give him props too. I don't have anything against the guy, but the money, the history, and the math say do not pay this dude because you're going to end up Elliott yourself, and we don't want that here.
And he might have been able to get away with it with Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer. He's not getting away with it with Cam and Cam.
Madison isn't a running back one though, and I don't think they have a solid enough committee behind Madison right now to be comfortable in dealing Cook.
Right. That is the conundrum.
That's the conundrum. I mean,
I think you can figure that out.
It gets back to the it's not his fault thing. You know what I mean? It's not Dalvin Cook's fault that his offensive line was not so good at times. And yes, that Buffalo game, the Miami game, the Colts game, he definitely was a big part of the reasons that they were able to find ways to win those games. But spending that money at that position, it's just not a winning formula. Mm-hmm. But I get your point. You're definitely right about it. Is okay. Do we think Alexander Madison can give you the same kind of production that Cook can? No, we don't. I think I'm just willing to accept it. I'm willing to accept that I know I'm going to take a step back to Alexander Madison. Maybe Alexander Madison runs for somewhere between 8 and 1,100 yards and has 6 touchdowns. And you just have to rely on the passing game a little bit more. Because to me, whatever the difference is, and again, we don't know because we don't have a big enough sample size on Alexander Madison. We can talk about the games where Cook was out. Alexander Madison had a bunch of 100-yard games. We can also talk about that play in Seattle where Alexander Madison needs 1 yard to clinch the game and he doesn't do it. Okay. But if you gave Alexander Madison RB1 carries, his production will not be as high as Dalvin Cook's. Is the difference between RB1 Alexander Madison and whatever you think of Dalvin Cook worth that much money? Probably not. But that doesn't change the point that you're right, that the production is going to go down. And that's not a slight at Madison, and that's not anything about Cook's money. It's just the economics and the reality of the situation, I think. But we'll see. I agree with, though, if he was amenable to taking like a deal like Harrison Smith did, would I be more interested in keeping him then? Yes. I'd probably say the smart move would probably still be to move on for him, just like the smart – Adam Thielen could have taken a pay cut, and even if he had, I would have said that was a mistake. I think the smart move was just to cut ties at that point. But we'll find out. We're only, 29 days away, 28 days away from that draft? I think a lot of stuff – I agree with Mary. I don't know what she's thinking, but I agree. I think a lot of stuff's going to go down that draft weekend. I really do.
I think we all like Ty Chandler and Kenny, and we think that they have a lot of potential, but at the moment, neither is a proven quantity.
Yes. We do get disillusioned with guys that we think can be something, and we just need to give this guy this and this guy that. I'm with you on that one for sure. That I'm not going to just be hey, we got this guy, we got Ty Chandler, Kenny Wong, we'll be fine. Well, no, we're not going to be fine. I just accept that we're not going to be fine, but that's okay. We'll work it out.
Yeah.
I guess my whole thought process with the running back and what you pay them, and I know that this is not how you would actually construct a team, but it's how I can justify it sitting here right now. We paid a lot of money for Adrian Peterson, and we didn't win a Super Bowl with 28. You're not going to draft a running back better than Adrian Peterson. You're not going to. So why am I going to pay a lot more money to have another high-paid running back on this roster when you're not going to be as good as what Adrian Peterson was in his prime for this team when he didn't win a Super Bowl with it? We've tried paying a lot of money for running backs between Peterson and Cook. Let's move on. We got Jefferson and we got Hawkinson that are going to eat up a lot of money out there on that skill position. You're not paying a lot of... So you've got to pay a lot of money for your quarterback. We're paying a lot of money for Jefferson, and we're paying a lot of money for Hawkinson. I'm not paying a lot of money for a running back right now either. I'm just not doing it.
I agree.
Looking at the NFL the way it is right now, would you say Dalvin Cook is a top 5 running back?
Yeah, he's there. Yeah, I would say so. But you only get so much out of a top 5 running back. Mm-hmm. When you're talking about building a team that can compete for championships. For example, who's the best kicker in the NFL?
Justin Tucker.
Either Tucker or Daniel Carlson, one of those two guys, right?
That hurts. Right in the heart.
We keeping it real tonight, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Would you pay $12 million a year for the best kicker in the NFL? Of course not.
Yeah.
The best kicker in the NFL can only get you so much. So that would be like saying we're going to pay $12 million a year for the best kicker in the NFL. Okay, but if you take the difference in money between the best kicker and the second or third best kicker, that difference in money isn't worth that difference in production.
It's another player. They might only be a special
now,
team.
Again, that was an extreme analogy, and that was a little bit exaggerated. So, I'm not trying to be whatever. It was just kind of just an example to say, hey, I agree with you. Dalvin Cook, top 5 running back. But what does that get you? It gets you up against the salary cap where you got to make other choices, and maybe you can't fix your guards or whatever else. So,
and like we said,
don't get me wrong, I love Dalvin Cook. I love him.
I do too.
Yeah.
The Vikings they're far enough away. We're not in the situation that the 49ers were, where you can look at that team and go, hey, we're going to add Christian McCaffrey to it. And that's going to be another excellent piece to this team. And that legitimately made them a Super Bowl contending team. The Vikings are not in that situation either with or without Dalvin Cook right now. So you can take Dalvin Cook. You're going to take a step back at him, but I think that's an area where you're willing to take a step back a little bit and give some of the younger guys an opportunity to see what you have in them, because you're not going to know if you don't get them on the field.
But other than in the trenches, what do the 49ers have offensively that the Minnesota Vikings don't?
Good point.
I think
their tight end is better than Hawkinson, but Hawkinson's top 4. I know we have better wide receiver 1. I guess I put Christian McCaffrey when he's healthy up above Dalvin Cook, but they both have health issues.
But that speaks volumes as to how important in the trenches is.
Yeah. That's a good point. So I want to do this because I do this as often as I can, and I've stuck with this. This is kind of like a T-shirt that I have metaphorically that I always wear. Justin, I've said this on the show a million times, and it goes for Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook, Eric Kendricks, all that. You have to Bill Belichick everything. For you guys that I've never seen in our chat, you'll hear me say this if you listen to the show again, which I hope you do. Get rid of him a year early. Mm-hmm. Don't wait a year too late.
Well, and I've brought up that point too, where it's like you could have done that last year.
Yes.
You would as a Vikings fan last year, you would have had to trade that. And last season was a lot of fun. We won a lot of games. There was a lot of big comebacks, a lot of fun moments that we're all going to be sitting here talking about. Would you have traded that to have more draft capital right now?
And I'll answer it the same way that I answered it last time. Last year was to solidify the new GM, the new head coach, to give them a longer time to be able to do what they want to do. If they had come out last year and started a complete restructure right off the bat, and this had been a 5 or 6 win team, that leash would have been a lot shorter.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
No, that's a good point. It's easy for us to say, yeah, if you told me right now we could have traded Thielen, we could have traded Cook, as a couple of examples, Eric Kendricks, another one, and that we'd have 7 draft picks right now on top of what the 5 that we got, but we had a 6-win season and it was just meh the whole time versus can this defense ever stop anybody? Do we have to always be winning by 1 scores? You're right. It's easy for us to say that, but to your point, our jobs aren't on the line.
Right.
It's really easy to tell. It's really easy to tell.
He's thinking about this year coming up because this was year 2022. That would have been 3 straight years in a row. 3 straight years of just again. Really, you're in the middle of the pack. You're below average again. Mm-hmm. But the capital would have been nice. But yeah, that's a tough one. The 50-50, the juxtaposition of that specific variable and scenario is tough because we as fans, we needed last year. And we desperately needed for Kevin O'Connell to come in and see the
I didn't need a heart attack every week. I don't know about you.
Yeah, they do tend to do that. They are consistent there.
I remember every Sunday when we would do a post game. We didn't do it every Sunday, but the times we did, it's just like, oh, how are we going to talk about it again? It's the same thing. I thought we were dead, and I remember that Buffalo game where it was 4th and 18, that pass to Jefferson, where I thought it was incomplete, and then the announcer started going crazy, and I jumped off my couch. I'm like, he did not get okay. And then I remember Kirk Cousins gets stuffed at the 1-inch line. I'm like, seriously. And then the defense scores on the next play. I'm like, are you kidding? I can't do this anymore. This is too much. But no, I guess I'll just say it like this. I like the direction that they're going, and I like that we have a new direction. We'll just wrap that portion of the conversation by saying that. I like that there is a new direction and that we're not just – because Rick Spielman would have found a way to restructure Thielen and Kendricks, bring back Peterson, and wouldn't have been signing all of these guys to 1-year deals to prove it deals.
Yes.
We would have had – he probably would have given Kirk Cousins an extension and said, well, the only way I can save money now is to give Kirk Cousins an extension and put more void years on it and do those sorts of tricks. Whereas this year's team said, we're just going to shift money from this year to next year, but we're not locking you into anything. We're not locking ourselves into anything. So we'll take that. We'll take it.
All right. We are running a little long, so I'm going to close this out with one more question. How much value do you guys put into moments instead of championships? Like, I know we all have great memories from last year, and
that's
the
tough to answer as a Vikings fan.
well, when all you have are moments.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. I want to win a championship. Like, that's the thing. Like, that's never happened.
You would trade those moments for that?
I mean... What the Minneapolis Miracle? Okay, so this is the thing that we're all on social media and we all get shit from other fan bases where we're like, yeah, the Minneapolis Miracle is great, and then Eagles fans are like, yeah, and you completely shit the bed the next week. So it takes that moment down a little bit. Now we're all in our Vikings bubble where we're like, hey, Stephon Diggs, the miracle moment, you're a hero, we love it. But to other fans that don't really matter as much.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like Justin Jefferson's catchception or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
It was an amazing moment.
Say whatever you will about how the Rams built their team and hemorrhaging the future and giving up draft picks. They won a Super Bowl with it.
Yeah, I want a reason to fly to Minnesota and empty out $1,000 in my bank account just to be hammered for a parade. I do. I'm gonna do it whenever they win the Super Bowl. I'll call out sick. I'll do whatever I have to do. I want to be there for that. But that's unfortunately the Minnesota mediocrity or whatever you call it. From
Purple purgatory.
It's just been right in the middle. And here's the graphic that pisses me off the most because I shared it with you guys the other day. The most winning franchises in NFL history in the Super Bowl era, we are third. From team 1 all the way to team 11, every team has a Super Bowl, but the Vikings.
I will say,
so painful.
I will say, our moments are fucking great. Even though we've never won a Super Bowl, like, we have some really memorable moments.
We all remember Favre
fans.
to Greg Lewis, but it didn't amount to nothing.
No, it didn't.
I also remember that interception right over the middle, too. Yeah. As soon as you say that, it hurts every time.
Mm-hmm. Adam, to answer your question, championships, and it's not close. Yeah. I'll tell you why. In 87 and 91, when the Minnesota Twins won their World Series, I was 8-12. The first one, I didn't quite get it. The second one, I did. I got it when the Gophers hockey team won their back-to-back national championships, when the Minnesota Lynx won their 4 WNBA titles in 7 years. If the Vikings were to win a Super Bowl in the Kevin O'Connell era, we could be garbage for 10 years and I'd be fine. Because I don't know if you guys followed the NBA back in the day, but the 80s was the rivalry between the Celtics and the Lakers. And the two winningest NBA franchises, and, you know, the Boston mentality, the LA mentality, Bird and Magic and that sort of thing. And I remember in 1985 when the Lakers beat the Celtics, getting revenge for 1984, the first thing that their owner said when he had the trophy, because the Celtics and the Lakers had played in the finals like 7 or 8 times, and the Celtics were 8-0, okay? And Dr. Jerry Buss, the first thing he said was, "This sentence is removed from the English language. It can never be said again that the Lakers have never beaten the Celtics in the finals." And the first thing that I'm going to say, hopefully before I die, is it can never be said again that the Vikings have never won a Super Bowl. Those moments are awesome. They are, but they're just moments. You want to know what's great? One moment, raising the trophy. That trumps them all. Okay.
I'll cry like a baby.
It's like when you're a kid. When you're a kid at Christmas time, do you want 5 small gifts or do you want one 10-speed bicycle?
I want one 10-speed bicycle or whatever. Yeah. Yep.
You know, we're in the camp where we get a lot of small gifts at Christmas time, but we never got that big bicycle. I want the big bicycle, but that's me.
All right, I do want to thank everyone who joined us in the chat. We had a fantastic time. You can check out my work over on the Viking Age, where I'm just writing some stuff about the Vikings every once in a while. It was a real good month for me, so thank you to everyone who went over and clicked on my articles, left comments, shared it with their friends, or whatever you guys do. You can check me out on every social media platform at MNVikingZombie. That's where you can interact with me. I hope to see you guys around here. And let's see what everybody else has here going on.
You can stalk Kyle West here at Bagley Square.
You can.
You can also buy his stuff here. A very good photographer, and you can buy Purple People Cup podcast merch if you so choose.
Like I always say, the 84 in the titles, because I'm a Randy Moss fan, so there you go. But yeah, you can check out my artwork if you want to share it on social media. That's what I always say too. Just sharing a link and being like, hey, check this out. That's the best kind of organic reach, whether it's for our podcast or Justin's podcast or my photography or anything like that. That's always one of the number one ways that you can help any kind of content creator.
Give our guest Justin a follow on Twitter, and if you want to watch his stuff on YouTube, you can find him here on Twitter at jday_24. You can also follow Purple and Gold for Days. They do excellent work there. I watch their YouTube shows as well. Justin, thank you so much for joining us, man. You know how to do this. You're not a rookie in this, so we appreciate all the input. And I'm sure we'll have you again. Maybe when we get closer to the season starting, we have a lot of drama and picks and all that stuff. But it was such a pleasure, man. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. I had a blast. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. If you watch – because I put it on my community tab. So if you did check the show out tonight for the first time, hit my brothers up here, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. To Kyle's point, just hitting the like buttons, just hitting the share buttons, that helps content creators so much to beat the YouTube algorithm, as they say. Mm-hmm. So come check me out, check out my videos, hit some like buttons, and if you like it enough, hit the subscribe button as well. One of the lines that Rhino from Vikings Uncensored said is, hey, we support each other because when one of us wins, we all win. So, gentlemen, it was an absolute blast sitting in here with you, and we'll do this again sometime.
I love that Vikings fans are such a big community, and there's so many options.
Absolutely.
For podcasts. Everyone can find something that they really enjoy, and there's not really a whole lot of need to compete with each other head-to-head. I do feel like the fandom has such an opportunity to come together in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
This is coming from the fan base that was voted #1 worst fan base. So to have a positive space, because we've seen the negative side of Vikings Twitter time and time again, to have the guys that share the thoughts that we have, but also do their own spin on it. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is stuff I live for in the YouTube StreamYard era that we're in. So we love it.
I got to say this about that, though, real quick.
Yep.
That poll is such bogus because guess what? The reason why we're the most negative is because we care the most to be negative. There are fans that are just apathetic that don't even bother being negative because they don't care. That makes us the best fan base, not the most negative ones, is because guess what? The opposite of love isn't hate. The opposite
Kyle
of
West
love
is saying how are Jacksonville fans so positive? It's not that they're positive, it's that
they don't care. No, the opposite of love is apathy, where you just don't even care at all. So that poll was garbage anyway. Thanks to everybody for joining, though. We very much appreciate you.
Thanks, and check out Kyle Smith. He's putting on music concerts sometimes over in Carolina. So he's got some talent. He's doing some covers. I believe he's doing a Taylor Swift cover if you're into Swift.
I'm adding some Miley Cyrus to the list, too, because the ladies asked for it, and I've got it down.
There you go.
Can I request Trouble from you?
Trouble by?
Taylor Swift.
Okay. I'll add it to the list. My mind went to Old Country and Ray LaMontagne, and I was like, where are we going with this? I can add that in there.
There you
Absolutely. Go. Adam, take us away. Thank you, Justin, for tuning in. Thank you, everybody.
Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, thanks again, everyone, for joining us, and we'll be back next week probably to talk about linebackers. I don't know.
Sure.
Let's put a question mark next to that. It'll be some position, either that or maybe the defensive line or edge rushers. I don't know. Either way, we'll have something to talk about, and hopefully we'll have some more Vikings news that comes through. But we'll see you next week, and once again, stay classy, Minnesota.